I'm just going to frame a little bit so that
Mhm.
we agree that we're on the same page roughly. And how I would frame it is that you are one of the people who are really good at identifying ways to um, benefit from arbitrage at scale.
Yep, that's true.
And um, and you now have decided that you want to use this skill or maybe even talent to liberate money in order to help build the bridge into a new paradigm.
That's exactly my mission today.
Okay,
So very well
good.
presented. That's about.
So that's the frame we're looking through. And
I would love also to add only one thing
yeah,
that
great.
since ever I've been also during like for example my careers I had also I always been like let's say in the middle of let's say growing trends and in particular like my ability I think to like I want to enhance my ability to let's say resume and explain in common words also complex
Mhm,
topics.
mhm,
In particular, I started in the programmatic area. So when advertising was something totally manual and mostly relations, etc., became automated. And where we started talking about technologies, data, and privacy and all this kind of stuff. So I really started really foster my talent, try to 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 sum up and clarify in common words this kind of complicated concept, and I feel I'm doing it again right now because there's an upper layer that I'm actually here to to try to deconstruct with you and try to also give a common language in order to people to let people in my industry in particular understand that. So that's also a thing that I wanted to add.
and your primary industry, because you're at least in two industries, but your primary industry you say is advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So with that frame, we want to explore several things. The primary being how to or where to allocate liberated financial capital. And I'd say in order to really get a handle on that and really understand um, where to best put it, and maybe even why do you have to put it there in the first place, I think we need to set the stage and unpack some things about where we are in the world. When I say we, I think we always mean as a species, not
I agree.
not the Northern Atlantic people. Sometimes I mean those, but then I would say it. And when I say we, I generally refer to us as a species because that's what it's about. So unpacking those and having a little conversation around those and then seeing what emerges out of that. And we're recording this so that we can maybe reuse it in your process of extracting some useful information, some useful images that you can distill into comprehensible uh, stories, and to share it with the world potentially. And we don't know where that ends. So we might, very likely, we will have multiple of these conversations building on top of one another as we integrate whatever comes up in one of the conversations. So I think that's the frame, right? Would you?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to, as a just as a little starter from my side, um, share and a little overview that you already know, but just here into the
Yeah.
space. Uh, So ultimately, we're currently in a very challenging situation. We are, it's very likely that we have, as a species, exploited our environment to such an extent as we grew, like many, many species, and ours particularly in the history multiple times, right? There have been civilizations that have collapsed, but this time, and always, usually always, most of the time, because of environmental circumstances, because of the exploitation of environments, more often than um, having fallen by um, hostile uh, offense. So, and we find ourselves in a situation where this might happen globally, and this hasn't happened as far as we know before. We don't know really how to deal with that.
Absolutely.
And and so it's worth looking the um, at I think that's a horrible term to use, but I'll use it anyway, at the operating system of civilization. And I mean that spanning across multiple forms of governance is ultimately in a global um, game of mutual dependence, mutually assured destruction. We need to it doesn't matter whether you're a democracy or an autocracy, because you still have to play by the same rules in the global game. And
So,
the way I like, sorry, do you want to say something?
no, no, actually, I agree with you know.
Okay, so the way I see the current situation is we're using money as the ultimate abstraction to claim stuff, but ultimately it's a claim on energy, and most of the time it's a claim on future energy. So the way
Okay.
this works is we produce money, M3 grows exponentially, it doubles every roughly 10 years. And so in order to have some faith in being able to buy the same amount of salads tomorrow with my token as I could buy today, we need some general agreement of its value. And since we used to do that to gold, we noticed that gold doesn't grow exponentially. So we in this we was the United States, specifically Nixon in 71, bound our fiat currency, meaning our invented faith-based currency, to the GDP. GDP therefore also grows exponentially. There's some loss in between, inflation and such, so GDP doesn't have to grow as fast, but it still doubles roughly every 20 years. Now, GDP ultimately means that we have to move atoms. Whether you're a service economy or whether you're a producing economy, it doesn't matter. You have to move atoms, and moving atoms requires energy. And because we have some efficiency gains, energy, while the energy demand also grows exponentially, it only doubles every 30 years.
Correct.
Now, everything would be really, really good about this because this is the driver of innovation. Because behind GDP actually stands the idea that we can be infinitely productive and innovative. But since this is tethered to energy and also material, as we will see in a moment, and we're living in a finite environment,
Yeah.
this simply cannot work on this premise. Now, breaking out of that is not so easy because both politics and the economy measure their success by growth of GDP, either directly or indirectly. So they're both locked in short-term cycles. So the economy has to grow at least year over year, but mostly it's measured in quarters, while politics is roughly measured in 4-year cycles. The first one to break out of that on a national, so intra or international scale, will lose. Will lose in the game that they're entangled in. So they won't step out of that, even if they see that this is a multipolar trap that they cannot escape, and they should escape because it's a machine that turns nature into waste increasingly faster. They cannot escape that.
And also, if I can add just one thing, it's a type of let's say scheme that is actually driven for from individuals and not really from congregations, communities, or anything else. So this is a total, let's say, ego-centered scheme instead of thinking about something else, or something with a better purpose, or something. Everybody right now, what I see also from this kind of executive schema, it's always a way that the individuals wins and the community lose. That's my perception basically after like the reading I had, and because I stopped myself really into analyzing every single word there is right here in these circles, and it actually this is something that have been always let's say a characteristic of capital society, and since the discovery of gold. But if you think about the past, when you find gold or let's say something that nature gives you to help you your community to grow, and not only for the main the individual purpose. So I get more rich, and the others they stay. They need to obey to me, or I buy power. That's actually what natural nature gave us, and in the past it was more, let's say, wasn't that focused on the individual, but was more into a broader sense to help the community to grow, to buy more food for your family, or this kind of stuff. Not only the individuality brought a very real focus on only my own peeps, let's say, my inner circle, and not to the community. So that's also something that I felt from the readings of this schema.
That's, I think, absolutely correct in assessment. And it's this this mechanism, the system, um, rewards egoic, selfish behavior. And if you don't pay very close attention, you might confuse the symptom of being selfish and greedy of the people that are successful in the system with human nature,
Mm-mm.
while
Yeah.
it is actually just a symptom of the system, right? And if you look at the the um, hints that we get from anthropology, from evolutionary biology, we can see that it's very unlikely that evolution selected individuals, solution selected groups of sapiens, because we are at our strength if we work together. So that's that's what we miss in this picture. And another way of saying that is the beautiful um, written in the beautiful book in Finite and Infinite Games by James Cars, which describes how um, finite games are games you play to win,
Yeah.
and infinite games are games you play to play. And I think this fits nicely in this whole thing because if there's a game you want to win, might be GDP, but if there's a game you want to play, it might be life. Right? The
What do you think?
continuous. Hmm?
If there is a if there is a this correlation and it's already existing these two schemes, like my question is, why do
Hmm.
you think that people choose for winning the GDP basically instead of life?
Well,
It's anthropologic, it's human behavior, just human being, it's something that I don't know, story told us, and we need to, still adapt and increase this kind of, vision
well,
and
we've put layers of abstraction between us and what we need to live a fulfilled life. And we added layers to the story of what we think is a good life. So you may make it more complex or more resource intense to achieve something that we think is a good life, and we make it much more abstract. And so the only way to get it, to get to a good life that is the agreed upon mode of getting a good life is by using money that is tethered to energy. And since money in the current incarnation, current form of fiat, debt-based fiat currency, is scarce. And scarcity drives competition. It also drives innovation, which is the good
yeah.
part of the side of the coin, but it also drives ruthless competition, right? Um, and so through that, and to the fact that it is very much tied to the legal structures of your governance system. So it is legal tender, meaning if there's a service between two people, then the government might always come and ask for tax in legal tender,
Mhm.
even if that service is offered as a gift. If, for example, an electrician comes to my house and he's a friend, and as a service act of love and care, he fixes something here as an electrician, he might get taxed for that.
Yeah.
In reality, this is unlikely to happen, but
Oh,
that exchange actually is bound to legal tender. So that's how intertwined that the level of entanglement that we see there. In addition to that, we have had a couple of generations of increased detachment, and I'm speaking specifically about the North Atlantic, right? The US, Canada, all of Europe, basically, um, increasingly detached from the sources of life. But who knows how to grow food, really?
yeah.
And so if you if you really if you were found if you found yourself somewhere out in nature having to care for yourself, most people would be utterly lost. And so the dependency on these multiple abstractions on this complex system are vast. And the only way to deal with that system, the only way to interact with the system is through money, and that is scarce. And then you start a cycle again of fear of not having access to that. And anybody who has high level access to that, who earns a lot, will do everything in their power to continue to do that and to help their inner circle, family, friends to also do that. That's completely natural, and I wouldn't see anything bad about that.
No.
And I think that's an important point here, really, is to notice that almost none of the people that are part of the system that make this system work and make it happen. And we should never forget that. It's just people interacting. People can start interacting in different ways, and then that system changes. And that's how that system is. It's not something that's carved in stone. It's just an agreement, and we can move over into another agreement. That's what we are here to discuss, really.
Exactly.
So individuals, um, it appears, are inherently good. Right? They don't want to exploit other people.
Yeah.
And there's science around this, but also um, I have anecdotal evidence from this, having had hundreds of conversations with people from all over the planet, from all sorts of walks of life, in a structured format of how finding out how do they actually want to live? What is a good life? What constitutes a good life? And ultimately, everybody says the same.
Oh,
And that was fascinating. I didn't expect that when I started. What everybody says effectively is, I want to live with a group of people, and that's then usually along the Dunbar scale, about 150 to roughly 4,000 group of people. And I want to live embedded in nature and in balance with those two people and that nature. And then people might put that onto a matrix between two axes. One axis is no tech to high tech.
mhm.
The other axis is Victorian monogamous values and Californian polyamorous values. So somewhere in that space, usually everybody positions their um, community embedded in nature. Um, we could, and Jim Rutt likes to call that coherent pluralism, right? There's something really coherent about being a human that we can find across all humans, and this is what we can build trust upon.
Yeah.
This is also why it's so important to um, build and empower humans to build themselves into strong people, right? Into grounded people with a foundation, so they are able to navigate this furious space that we're entering, and also and not be swayed by temptation easily. So that's that one side. And now if we say, okay, let's agree that this is a very, very high level perspective on the current predicament of humanity. Let's, if we have our open our wish list, what should it look like? And that's the other side. Right? This is by no means a declaration. Like this is the wish, and this is I would say primarily my personal wish, but there are other people and groups who share this shape roughly. So, and it's very much in line with what I just said. So at the center, if we ask ourselves what should be at the center, what's actually worth living or dying for, well, should probably be life, because life begets life. There's no life without life. I mean, if we don't put that at the center, I really don't know what else we should. I'm still waiting for somebody to teach me something else. But and if I then look at
It
how life
actually
has been,
goes to the current economy to to continue life, to find new ways to continue life. They are trying to put this let's say doctrine, this principle to us, to the mass, basically. But at the same time, it's always an individualistic purpose. It's not for the community, for the life of the community, for a restricted people of this and like acting like simple virus, just to find out the better place to destroy, to consume, and except Hollywood already told us about this with the different movies like Avatar, etc.
Mhm,
And that's incredible that like the current society trying to pass a message like this one. So we just wanted to have a future, keep like humanity for life, etc. But at the same time, we're trying instead of focusing on ourselves and our planet that already can has a potential to regenerate by itself, to give us everything we need. We are looking for something different, just to put our flag and say that we are the owner of this planet, this part or whatever.
mhm,
So I think really when you put down like life as a center of everything, you really need also to think about like what is the motive that an individual person today it's brought to life. It's brought towards life to do something for life, because at the moment everything is more like getting a better life for yourself and for your circle, and not
mhm,
really thinking about life in a broader sense. So,
mhm.
it could be
Yeah,
humanity, it could be, like the future in this way.
exactly. And the reason why we can have these kinds of conversations and these kinds of thoughts and action that we try and um, unfold in the world is because we are privileged and therefore also liberated to a point where we can actually afford to step out of this game
Yes.
and start seeing what you just described, that um, life or the purpose of being in the world has to move beyond your individual optimization, simply if only simply for one reason, which is you're always interdependent from everything and everybody around you.
Yeah.
And the more you embrace that, and the more you um, um, go into accepting that, you will not only see that your dependence, your success is actually dependent on the people who work in your organizations. That your success is actually dependent on the people who those people interact with, your clients and customers, those, etc. Right? And then you end up in points where you could say, okay, now everybody is actually dependent on the work of a farmer because we just simply wouldn't have food without that. And then you look at what the farmer does and all of the circles of dependency around that, and then you start thinking about soil and microorganisms, and you're getting closer and closer to life itself, like not specifically human life, life itself. And how I would define that is the structure that creates, increases, um, decreases local entropy and increases global entropy. That's what life does. It creates order in a small bounded circle, and it creates more disorder in the universe itself. So that's what life does. If you look at what a cell does, it ingests disorder, turns that disorder into order by creating a copy of itself.
Yeah,
That's what life does. And if it doesn't do that anymore, it's dead.
that's true.
So 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 this term here in the center, life, points to that fundamental mechanism, like breathing in, breathing out, this constant balancing of forces, all the way to the instantiation of a good life for an individual, right?
Exactly.
Individual, collective, but also encompassing everything that's alive, because we depend on that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Actually, you said something that I think we should put a little bit more focus on because this is
Mhm.
exactly what I'm trying to change right now. So basically, you spoke about success, and success today it's defined as basically how much wealth you can create around you, but wealth in terms of profits for a company or money for an individual. And what I'm trying to do, if we really wanted to, start a new perspective for humanity, for the people, we it's fundamental to rewrite the rules, of success, adding, the perspective that not you are not a successful person because you make money or because you are a big boss or you have a title.
Mhm.
um, the success, what I'm trying, now to reshape, and maybe here I can also understand. I extend also this concept. Right now, I put like in a simple way to success. It's also is not a just profit because that's what I want to change. It's about positive impact we create for people and for the planet. So this is the motive, the reason why I'm actually trying to build something different from for for me, for everybody, because this is not something that is gonna be only mine. No, this is something that I will share to everybody with everybody, and that's. But I think I started actually to thinking about this project as soon as I changed the meaning of success
Okay.
and change the meaning what's profit means today and what's impact also means today. And that's I think the basic the first milestone I need to, is going to be the first really big challenge to transfer to a market
Mm.
where it's actually fully driven by profits.
Well, I think there are multiple layers that need to be addressed individually in here. I um and I would like to explore that journey that you went on to that ended in reshaping your definition of success. But before we go there, I'd like to address some of the layers that I see here, um, that are part of this image, because I'd also like to stop that and actually see you again better. Stop that share. Um, so the we are um, if we look at how life is doing its thing, it's
Mhm.
also needing energy, and it uses sun, the big fusion reactor in the sky, as its source of energy, which provides 172,000 terawatts compared to the 19 terawatt that we're currently getting by burning fossil fuels. It's pretty, it looks like child's play, really, right? What we tend to conflate is we actually don't need energy, right? Um we need material, temperature, light, and movement, right?
Correct.
And and the same is which we can all get from natural processes driven by sun. So that leads to a certain level of sovereignty. right?
Yeah.
When I make a kombucha, I cultivate kombucha, and next week my SCOBY has doubled in size, so I pass it on, pass half of it to somebody else while I create my new batch, and if everybody in that just in that line would do it in roughly 7 weeks, everybody on the planet would have kombucha. Right? That's the power of these natural processes at scale. Now, that could create sovereignty if you expand it from something sweet, both in taste as an example, pun fully intended, to things like building materials,
Mhm.
right? Imagine you can grow glass. Imagine you can grow materials that have, in some on a ship here, steel-like properties. Um, Roof tiles, for example. Roof tiles because we're in the process of building a company around making roof tiles that way.
Mhm.
Imagine a world in which everybody had access to the entire material stack a human needs in her bioregion,
Mhm.
right? So that she can grow fulfilled life. The picture I put to this usually is imagine there's a child born,
Mhm.
and for her birth, her community comes together and gives her this box. Everybody contributes to that box, and it contains seeds and microorganisms and fungi and all of the things he needs to literally grow the entire material needs for her entire life.
It is
And
life.
her education is along how to use that, how to use it, how to share it, how to store surplus, how to store surplus for next year, but also how to store surplus in your friends' bellies or in your friends' houses, right? And that's then creates a capacity of care. Because if you're sovereign, you can break out of that dependency of needing to get the ultimate abstraction money. So then you can afford to care for others and you can afford to care for life. Now, we're
Basically,
also,
you sort
Mhm.
out also yourself. Basically, you are all sorted out, so you can basically think about something else. So the others.
Exactly. And now imagine 10 billion people on this planet being liberated from the need of running loops of that cycle and switching over and running loops in that cycle where they can start caring for others. And then we could just imagine that we species could find ways of putting ourselves in the driver's seat of our own fate. We could actually gain agency over where we want to go. That's the ultimate goal. And so on the top layer, and I call these infrastructures of generosity, right? Because on the bottom, we're building infrastructures of generosity around atoms. On the top, we're building infrastructures of generosities around ideas. And the core, most important idea here is money, because here we don't need money to say it in the eight forms of capital of Soloviev and Landua. It's we might need some financial capital, but primarily we need social capital or cultural capital, intellectual capital, spiritual capital, material capital, living capital, and I'm pretty sure I forgot something. Um, but these are the kinds of capital we actually need, right? And we tend to abstract also those away by using financial capital, right? And
Yeah,
now
like you said, it's a tool, the financial capital, more than the goal.
exactly, and and now as you and then we'll I'm just going to share one more thing, and then I would like to go into how you reshaped your understanding of this success. Um, because if you now look at a successful life, I would say a successful life could be one in which the person has fulfilled their interpretation of the fulfillment of Maslow's needs, right? Or Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah.
And this is a representation of what I'm talking about. So your definition of the five dimensions of Maslow, and then the on layers of abstraction, you put in eight forms of capital what kinds of inputs you might need for those for that life. Your definition, or the definition of your family, or the definition of your community, definition of your bioregion, right? You could scale that to multiple scales.
Yeah.
And then um, if if I put this into a spreadsheet and I start counting all of that, what it then creates for me is something like this, right?
Oh.
It tells me the relative importance of the forms of capital in relation to my desired way of living,
Of
right?
course.
And now I can see, okay, I need some financial capital, but not a lot, but I need a lot of social capital,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and what that also gives me is an assessment for today, an assessment where I want to go. And now I can start understanding how I could use forms of capital to transform them into other forms. So that ultimately what I need, what creates wealth for me is a balance across my forms of capital that is representative of how I want to live a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Amazing.
so that's the where we are, where we could go. And now you said something beautiful about how your starting point for reshaping your purpose was finding a new definition of success. And I'd be super curious to explore that a little. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, actually, everything came out from the bombing videos that we receive on social media, where actually in social media you see how the promotion of wealth and rich and money, it's actually the main point of contact of a lot of storytellings around social media. So somehow I one day I remember I was just scrolling the feed and I saw this video where actually they were telling you how success and the money and everything will buy, for example, love. So there was like this metaphor, okay, so if you want to be loved by your peeps and by your inner circle, you need to make money. They will come to you. You don't need to come to them. And or the idiotic status, if you make money with no efforts and buy houses and yachts and live the life you want, the successful life you want. So from this this simple video, these things, I was really touched about it because it was the moment that I found myself totally lost because I wasn't really inspired, like aspiring for these things actually. And so I started like thinking what could be a new definition of success. At the same time, as soon as I started thinking the project I'm into right now, I also got confirmations about that because I also want with this project to create liberal money. Uh, it's all about to convince. I will be successful in my project as soon as I will achieve. I will explain basically, and I will sell the idea that for a company that
Mhm.
success is not into the profit. That's why it's a real challenge for me also, and in everything is going to be storytelling on the building of this project, and then I'm still in the creation of the storytelling. because of course I have to say basically today to companies that the real key for success it's towards impact and not towards profit, and that's disrupting for sure on a business capitalism on capitalism basically.
Depends on the level of impact you're talking about, and depends on whether you're actually um, beyond doing something nice for your CSR report. Yes.
Yeah,
If
but
you're
also
if
I want to move away also from this. It's more like this is something that it's not like it's not like a tax that you have to pay, but it's more like something that you're conscious and it's coming from from your inner self on that.
Mhm.
And I understand that I can do it. I can talk to people and try to understand the way that they see success, and it's very subjective, of course. Uh, for the company, there's only one way: profit. We are living in a capitalism, so there's a IPOs, public companies, etc. They live out of profits. Without this, there's no other chances. So building actually something that is not going to generate profit, but at the same time can sustain, of course, the team, the headcounts, and all this kind of stuff. I think this is a model that is going to be first, as soon as it's going to be on the market, it's going to totally disrupt the market because nobody will trust this business model. And at the same time, like this model basically it's mostly like I don't need well, I need your money to do something else and not grow my wallet or grow my team or whatever else. I can do it anyway because this is something that I can do it, but not with the main purpose. And that's why I needed to first rewrite the word of success with a new perspective towards more like a life. It could be the right words.
um, so I mean, there's some very, very difficult things in there. The first being, as soon as you take part in the current game, you are contributing to the extractive nature of that game. There's no way out of that. And that you need to be really, really aware of that, because the nature of the game, not only is it extractive, but it is also very, very easy to capture um, any well-intended directionality and reintegrate it into the common directionality of that system. So it's really, really hard. And um, it's it's so let's break it down a little and say,
Just
okay,
to add
let-
something like this challenge. I know
mhm,
that tell to a company owner to not thinking about profits, etc. It's I know that this is something that today I can pass as a crazy guy or something. That's
mhm,
why I would try to put myself in the game in this game and try to build something different. Like
mhm.
starting from
Yeah,
me, the
yeah,
risk
that's
is mine.
I understand that, and that's why we have this conversation, because that's the only way this works, right?
Yeah,
Um, the yeah, but nevertheless, you're not going to do this alone. And and let's say you're building a team, and let's say there are 100 or 1,000 people working on that organization to create huge amounts of liberated capital that then can go in the right direction. Um, while doing something that is inherently driving the old game, right?
yeah,
That's um that's really difficult to hold. That's really difficult to defend from the perspective of the new game
yeah,
after a while. And so, and I, after a while is the key component here, because what would happen if there's 1,000 people working on this organization, even if you had the best intentions in the world, and even if you created it as a non-profit organization that nobody who co-owns it can ever extract from, um, the people working there will ensure that this game never ends because their livelihoods are coming from there.
Yeah,
Right? So if if you adopt new paradigm principles into this, you would also say there is a purpose for this organization.
yeah,
And we can define when that purpose is fulfilled. And we can set a timeline for that. We can say, okay, that purpose, we estimate that purpose is fulfilled in, let's say, 10 years. All right. So we now put into the bylaws of that organization that that organization stops existing in 10 years.
that's absolutely not what I want, of course. But I agree.
Well, 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 wait. The organization is just a construct, right? That that describes that a couple of people are coming together to do something together, and whatever that something is, in this case, should generate liberated money,
Exactly.
right? But there might be a time in which that liberated money is actually not required anymore,
Oh yeah,
right?
that's absolutely
And
that's nice.
now you've created an organization that just wants to continue to run, although it shouldn't exist anymore.
Of course.
So then there needs to be some way of pulling those 1,000 people or whoever's working in that organization over to the new game.
Yeah.
So their incentive actually is not to perpetuate the existence of the organization that is paying their salaries, but actually to start co-owning the infrastructure that creates the new paradigm for their life. So they actually start living in that new environment. Right?
The incentive is not only share a shared vision, but also something more like let's say concrete, where they feel like they participate, not only participate, but also they continue to grow this this
And they know they're done. And they know they're done. Their work is done. Right? So um I mean this is like a brainstorming session, right? But
no, exactly, because I don't see the because like like my biggest fear is like so I want to conquer basically the money, let's say, mm, capital. So I don't want to basically I don't want that the need of the money will be like a perpetual need for the future, but my goal is actually starting. Like I think the money need is gonna be the last pieces because before, since everything is driven by money today, I wanted to use these big resources that I can create for like liberal resources, and and start fostering basically the real needs for the humanity. So, for example, like now we have a climate change. So let's restart, like the focus on reforestation and the oceans and everything that actually can help us to reduce the risk to blow up this earth. Then my attention is also towards the people. So people that they don't have enough resources or enough money to have a roof, to have eat, to have food, to have. So I'm telling you a really rough idea. I'm thinking because I didn't really, did a lot of introspection on this concept because I don't have the tools or the skills. But basically, like my focus is starting from like to liberate the humanity from the money. That's and this passage passed through. Create like what I really share what like your principle. So the energy part, the material part, the food part, all these kind of important capital that today are still connected with money. And so the first step is going to be sorted out this part, and then it will come the day that it's actually money don't need are not needed anymore. But I don't see how it could happen this. So that's why I'm afraid, and I'm more worried also. Let's say afraid that this model, this project can be corrupted because since we are having a lot of money, I don't know how to incentivize people not to take advantage of this kind of situation and not fall into the greenwashing or the stupid, the stupidity of humans that usually, they usually corrupt this kind of good models. So I mean, just to give you like and trust me, it's really difficult for me to verbalize this because it's not really clear in my mind.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this, right?
But
To
yeah,
begin to
that's really
verbalize these things.
the pain point I see right now for this.
So, um, I once spoke with a famous um, founder of a store chain of drugstores here in Germany, and he basically said something, and there's a nuance here, something very interesting. He said, "I'm not paying my people, the people that work at my company, to work at the company. I'm not paying them for the work they do. I'm paying them so that they can afford to do the work." So in his mind, he was giving them money so they could be free to do that work. It's
Interesting.
it's it's so wrong because he wouldn't allow them to take money and go work for somebody else, of course, right? But the general idea that's is a first level of detachment from um, the thinking in money, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, okay, what does a person need to live a good life? Okay, we give them that so they don't have to worry and they can do a great job. And while they're doing a great job, they're also providing towards the money that they earn. Right? That's ultimately what he's saying. And so what if you move that a few steps further and created a spiral in which the people that work in that organization know that they're working for liberating themselves and their loved ones and them as an entire group from the current paradigm in the sense that everybody will co-own all structures they need for life. So co-own housing, co-own medical facilities, co-own schools, co-own um, water supply, energy, all of this, right? Uh, and and make sure that the infrastructure, so the current organization creates that infrastructure, but that infrastructure is such that others can start learning from that.
Mhm.
And so now what would happen if we really went all the way through that thought experiment of this guy that I was mentioning, and said, so we create a structure that is deeply set in the current system, move doing advertising, spinning the game of that system even faster, right? Because that's essentially what advertising is there for. Extracting liberated money, using that liberated money to create infrastructures of generosity, meaning creating the infrastructures that allow the people that work there to step out of the game.
That isn't isn't what religion does.
What is that thing doing here?
I don't know.
Um, sorry, isn't that what? Religion?
Isn't like what religion does to people to because basically you what I'm hearing here it's like like a religion give you a pass for the afterlife. So if you follow, if you are on this path, basically you have the path for heaven, the path for eternal peace,
Hmm.
and liberate basically their people priest, and the nuns and all these guys from the game from money from because they have we can say liberating money from the nations from people that actually like I know a lot of people in Italy that the grandma that she was alone she was giving everything to the church just to
Hmm.
like the assets money and everything. So basically like what you are describing I feel like I sense a lot of similarities with religion in general, like the religion, not the church in specifically. Could be also Islam, could be Buddha, like the Hindus and all these kind of religions. But this is something that we were capable to create for the afterlife. Why can we do it for our for the for the earth life? I don't know if you agree with that because that's
I'm trying to understand still. So you're basically saying um, the the church demanded or expected resources um, from the people, and it in turn promised a um,
no, basically like a church is receiving resources from the people because
mhm,
they follow their doctrine, their
mhm,
principle. Because if you don't follow their principle, you're a bad guy, or you're not gonna win your eternal peace on the afterlife.
mhm,
So that's why people follow, and without
mhm,
even without even a strong commitment, but they follows. And when there's a choice for the most committed people on a specific
mhm,
religion or to the church, they receive they give spontaneously financial resources, assets, everything to the church because they are kind of like trying to. I wouldn't say buy their peace afterlife, but sort of. But also because some people are just alone and they don't know what to do. So a good deed for their soul is to go to give everything to the church. The
so,
people that works for the church, they are liberated because they don't earn money. Well, they shouldn't, at least. And all this liberated capital is helping, is sustaining this ecosystem of millions of people working for church, for example,
mhm,
liberated from the money. And actually, church is the one that since we are still in this game, is the one that is investing this money to create wealth for not only for the church but also for its employers, the employees, let's say. So based on what you just said about a company that can liberate its own employees from the game, from material to food, to money, to everything like that. It could be, of course, something that can keep its life also for a long time. Actually, it can also evolve into something that actually people, because everybody owns a part of this system, so it can, of course, create a different type of wealth. But like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know
Good.
if you
Good.
understood the if I made it a little bit clear, like this.
I think I can sense the analogy you're drawing. Um, I'm I'm not sure I fully agree with that specific analogy. I think I agree fully with what you're trying to say. Um, and I think there's some danger in using the church as an analogy because the church is
I say religion, like it's more like
explicitly not.
no, no, of course.
Um, but um, but yeah, so
Because I
so
think this is a perfect model that it's already in front of us. We are already, we already know how is it basically, and I don't understand like why it cannot be replicated to our Earth life instead of
okay,
our afterlife.
so so you could say that maybe we try this. So you are really good at generating capital,
Mhm.
right? And therefore, you have all of the resources to create a good pre-afterlife for yourself.
Yeah.
And now, other people might not be good at that, or might also not have the even the chance to start trying. It's sometimes it's just a question of your starting conditions. Some people just don't have the possibility. Now, creating a structure that gives people that possibility. So basically, multiplying yourself um, in the sense that um, instead of capturing the wealth, the financial capital that's being created for yourself, you're giving it to the people that are actually creating it because you can afford to not to use it because you are sovereign. So you are actually in the position of being able to move into care, and that care encompasses that these people working in that organization do the job that generates the money, but as they do this, you help them on the second layer move into a situation of complete independence of the current situation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's phase one. I would call that phase one. Now it becomes really interesting. Phase two, what mean, how do we replicate that? So now there are 1,000 people who are liberated from the system. They're living a new system, whatever that looks like, right? Living a new system. Now, how can they leverage that by another two orders of magnitude? Right? Each of them liberating another 1,000 people.
Yeah.
That tracking that machine would be very, very interesting. Um,
No, but
so
that's exactly why
uh,
I took like the example of the religions, because like everybody works there. It's somebody that liberated and try to liberate also others somehow in the afterlife. I'm saying, not in the real life. But that's why I see a lot of analogy on this, because I think this is I don't know, like a principle that it's following something that it's already in front of us. That's the feeling I have. But we didn't use it in the right with the right mode, with the right modality, because we are just approaching this kind of like game, let's call it,
Hmm.
but only to the for the afterlife, because
Hmm.
everything
Yeah.
that is it's around that, it's really the model that I'm actually also aspiring to build one day. But I don't have I'm not like I don't want to be there's only one God or multiple gods or whatever else that you need to follow to have a good afterlife. Why don't we switch this concept to the present, so to the earth
Hmm.
life, and
Hmm.
try to to like my exercise here, it's more like try to understand like what's the incentive for for these people working for a religious organization uh, to promote their their lifestyle, their like if there's any, because at the moment it's tough because you need to follow strict rules to be a part of this community, to be a priest, for example, to be a priest, sorry.
Hmm.
And of course, at the same time, the priest is the first person that is in charge, basically, to develop and spread this message. So, I mean, that's also the similarity that I see on the model that I wish to build something that can be can exist for the future, also whenever I'm not there, and for the past for the next years. But at the same time, it's difficult for me to unlock this kind of, I don't know if it's a human desire, if a human purpose, if it's something that is more material. I don't know how to, let's say, and trust me, I'm not a religious guy. I'm not like followers or this kind of things. But I see that there is already a mechanism that it's already telling me this world already exists. Now let's also transport to the present and not only for the afterlife.
Exactly. But so yeah, there's currently financial resources required to do that, right? Because people will what will people tell you if they want to have a good pre-afterlife? Um, what they will tell you is, well, I want a house, and I want to have food, and I want to have nice neighbors, and I want to have a good school for my kids, and I want to be able to do some sports, and I want to know that if I am sick, there's somebody to take care of me, and all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And um, if you look closely at all of these infrastructures, they're all very much aligned with the needs of the current system.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, um, there's no there's no incentive in the current system to make people truly healthy, to heal. There's a strong incentive to cure symptoms because that means that they are eternal customers. There is also no real incentive to create human beings who can actually truly think for themselves. Because if you did that, you would run out of people who actually play this game.
Yeah, you don't have leaders.
Well, the reason, the source of the current education system is the British Empire needing robots, basically, who um, go to the colonies and tax them and bring the tax home. So they needed people who could read and write and calculate. That's what they created. They put people into rooms and taught them how to read, write, and calculate. That's where schools come from.
Yeah.
And if you look at how um, the education system is being lobbied, it's to create the workforce for tomorrow, right? It's not to create fully rounded, um, deeply thinking, deeply compassionate human beings, right? So what I'm trying to say is, if you have this conversation of how do you want to live in your fulfilled pre-afterlife, then you will touch upon all of these segments. So make this really tangible. You could say, okay, I'm putting together this company and we're buying this island over there with the money we're generating. And this island is owned by everybody here. And we're putting a um, a healing facility there that helps you heal, putting a school there that actually creates flourishing, compassionate, beautiful humans. We're putting healthy food production there, putting all of these things there. We're
Yeah.
financing that ourselves with the system that you're creating because you're good at generating financial capital.
Well, until the island brings everything we need from basic needs to the ground.
Exactly. But then you've done that for 1,000 people
Mhm.
or however many people live on an island, right? So let's say 1,000. Okay. Now you're still orders of magnitude away from 10 billion. Now that's why I say now it becomes interesting. That's phase one. Phase one is straightforward. It's it's pretty clear what to do.
Yeah, yeah,
It's still hard in its details, but what would what that would allow you to do is to learn everything about the mechanics of the building these kinds of infrastructures. And what you could potentially do on a meta level is to um, start working to identify people who are also as skilled as you in generating financial capital and showing them how to do this.
yeah,
Maybe it's not even required that you do this for 10 billion people. Maybe it's only required only required for 1,000, but you're providing two things. You're providing a model that can be replicated, and you're providing at least intellectual infrastructure.
yeah,
You're providing at least the understanding of how does one build a school like that? How does one build healing centers like that? All of these things. Or they might just already be out there, just not in one place. So how do you aggregate them into one place? How do you identify, build the knowledge space around that that others can then tap into? And then by doing that, you can make it so much easier for others to say, well, I have, I don't know, whatever it takes, 10 million, and I want to help 1,000 people get there as well. Here's the recipe book to do that. Here's the procedure to do that. We can easily do that, right?
yeah.
Um, so that might be one pathway to going where you would like to go.
The thing here is like it's becomes really important also to understand how to deal with the. I'm sorry to go back again on
Hmm.
this topic, but how to deal with the ego of the people, because if they see something outside they like more, for example,
Hmm.
you have provide we have provided everything to these families. They have enough resources, everything that they need. They don't need
Hmm.
to work for money or for building for anything, because
Hmm.
everything is provided. And what happens when young people, for example, with the bigger ego of the others, starts they know that they already have everything, but they want more, something that, for example, the capital world can provide to them, like a success in terms of individual, or I don't know, like bigger houses or this kind of stuff.
I think that has to do with part of the that's part of the infrastructure that's needed to be built, right? To um help people find grounding in themselves. Um, so there's an interesting observation in developmental psychology that basically says if you if a person um lives enough life, and that's not defined by time, but by intensity of life, um, then a person goes through certain stages. And I like using Robert Keegan's framework for that. Um, and he begins with the socialized mind. The socialized mind is the stage in which you understand the rule set of the society you're embedded in, and you're able to act according to that rule set. You know what to expect, what not to expect. So you're a functioning member of society.
Okay.
And then you step out of that and you become a self-authoring mind. So you start editing the rules the heuristics of navigating the social mind, right?
Yeah.
Navigating, interfacing with your environment, with your civilized society. And this is usually an inherently egoic level where you're optimizing for you individually. But as you pass through this, you're passing into something that's called the self-transforming mind. And the self-transforming mind now does the same to the self-authoring mind that the self-authoring mind does to the socialized mind, and it starts editing the rules of the self-authoring mind, and it moves into a position of service rather than of individual egoic self-fulfillment, but in a collective service,
Yeah, yeah,
of the self understanding. And if you look at the um, what happens, what is documented in the book Nordic Secret, what's happened 150 years ago, coming as an idea that wasn't implemented in Germany, but as an idea out of Germany into Denmark and other countries where people, young people, had the opportunity to really ground themselves by being able to spend 6 months in a space where they could just learn whatever they wanted to learn, do whatever they needed to do. That created grounded people that then had a massive effect on society
yeah,
up to today. There's precedence of how to do that. You can do that,
yeah,
and there's even a mechanism of dealing with this kind of drive, this hunger for exploration and life in young people. You look at the Mormons,
yeah.
they let these young people go. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they even deliberately push them out so that they go and make new experiences and then come back out of their own free will,
Okay,
right?
thanks.
And so I think that's all of the experiments that need to be done. There are these
Yeah,
kinds of experiments in the world right now, right? So
definitely. You're cutting a little bit. Just I might fix
yeah,
my
no,
connection.
something's wrong here. But it's also we're also at time. I need to drop, unfortunately, but that was really, really nice and refreshing. I love that. So um, let's let's check our calendars and see um, when we do the next one,
Yeah,
and let's integrate what happened today And then we
Yeah.
just build on that. Maybe it was nonsense. Maybe if we find a much better way, maybe it was good. Maybe there were some things that were good, so that we can build on those.
No, but